Welcome, Shachar Meir.
Thank you.
So you're an independent data advisor, and you gave also a fantastic talk at the conference Startup Day Texas. So your talk is about the $1 million data professional.
Yeah,
So quick question, what separates the top 1% of data professionals from everyone else?
that's a great question. I think that a lot of data professionals that I see, they first of all they focus too much on what they build and how they build it. They don't focus on why they build it. So just to give you an example, right? A few months ago, I was interviewing a data engineer, and I asked this person, okay, so tell me what you do, and they said I use Spark, I use Scala, I use Kafka, and this is kind of like you asking. So this is kind of like so just to tell you a story, right? So I was building a cabinet that weekend and for my daughter because she was 2 years old and she was running out of space in her room. So I wanted to put all of her toys in there, all of her stuff in the cabinet, so she can have more space to play.
Yep.
And I was thinking about this interview, and I realized that saying I use Kafka, I use Spark, I use SQL or Python is kind of like you ask me, hey Shachar, what did you do this weekend? And I say I use a hammer, I use a screwdriver, I use nails, which of course I did, but that's not the point, right?
Yeah.
So too many data professionals, I think they focus too much about how they do things, and
Yeah.
I think the better ones, they talk about what they do. So they would say I build a dashboard, I build this data set, and so on. The best ones, when you talk to them, they actually talk about the business problem. So they would say, okay, our marketing funnel is very leaky and we spend too much time acquiring customers with low lifetime value. So I'm building a dashboard and segmenting the customers so we can identify segments where lifetime value is too low, and then we can stop spending marketing money there so that we optimize the funnel, right? They still, these are three different ways of thinking about your work, right?
For sure.
But, one of them focuses on the value that you create.
Yeah.
And the other one is just focusing on so one of them is focusing on the outcomes, while the other two are focusing on the tools and the outputs.
Yeah, the way that they describe themselves is good for perhaps recruiters or something like that. They want to know, whether you're technical enough or something like that, but it doesn't really articulate well your impact, your value to the business. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah, and to be frank, like I think that a lot of data professionals, they don't even know what the value they create is. And that's, I think, part of the problem. So when I ask them, tell me about a project you've built, and they tell me something, and I'm like, okay, why did you do this? And they say, oh, my PM asked me to.
Yeah.
And I say, okay, but why? How are they going to use this thing that you've built? And they don't know.
Yeah, and so you've got a really interesting background. You've been an engineering manager at some of the biggest companies globally, so you're used to, I guess, managing a lot of incredibly talented data folks and also helping them to sort of climb the ranks and get those promotions and things like that. And so what are some of the things and the challenges that you've learned along the way with that regard?
Great questions. I think first of all, it's a lot about people, right?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people spend too much time learning, getting certificates, learning another language, learning another tool, and those kind of things. How much time have you spent working with finance?
Yeah.
Or with marketing? Or when was the last time you had some lunch with someone from sales, or you sat with customer support, listening to them, responding to calls? And I think that's a really important thing, because a lot of data professionals, I think they're just siloed out.
Yeah.
And they don't know what's happening. That's one thing. And the other thing is that a lot of data professionals, I think they wait to be told what to do.
Yeah.
They wait for somebody to say, okay, you do this. And the way they operate is they come to work they start work in the morning, they open Jira or whatever, task management tool they have. They look at tickets and then they just start operating. I mean, if that's how you operate and you just get tasks from other people and you execute, I mean, Claude can do that probably better than you right now. So I think that this is a trap, and being siloed, not having business context, business understanding, and not having any sort of initiative, I think is really going to hurt data people, and people who operate that way are going to lose their jobs sooner rather than later.
Because I guess there's that balance, isn't there, where you want to be a little bit self-directed in your career, but also you want to actually be doing things that are aligned to where the company's heading, isn't it? So it's just like not just going off randomly doing certs and stuff like that that add no business value whatsoever, but actually sort of talking to those teams, finance, sales, and customer support, where you can discover some of these really big problems and look at solving them, which can eventually lead on to some of those fantastic opportunities to grow out your career and justify perhaps that promotion that you might be seeking, right? So you've had a really interesting background from startups to Meta. What's different about building data teams at different scales, just to change tracks?
Good question. So I think that so when I worked for a startup, like 100, 200 people startup,
Yep.
and I was head of data, basically my scope, my remit was the whole company, right? So I was responsible for the finance data, for the marketing data, for sales data, for customer support data. I was looking at like the whole company was my remit, but it was tiny, right? Then I moved to Meta, and I managed the data for very small portfolio of products in ads, but these products had a run rate of $7 billion a year, and we empowered 8 million advertisers globally, and we had 3 billion daily active users, right? Which is an insane impact. And you build a product at Meta and you want to run an experiment, like you build the product, you launch it, and the 2 hours later you have 21 million daily active users,
Yeah.
right? Which is an insane scope. So your ability to try things, to experiment, to move fast, and all that is unprecedented, right? Your impact can be unprecedented. So I remember listening to a talk by Jeff Bezos, and he said that they wanted to reduce the amount of plastic that they use in their packaging, and they managed to reduce that by 7%, which was the equivalent of, I don't know, 500,000 tons a year of plastic, right?
Yeah.
So I think your scope might be very small, and a lot of people get intimidated by that, but actually like your impact can be very, very significant. That's one. But I think also like working in a big company is a very different skill set. It's a lot more about people, about processes. It's about influence, about relationships. What people call soft skills is becoming a lot more crucial. If you work in a startup with 10 other people, then you just get on and you do something and it's going to work. But when you work in a big company, your ability to navigate these things and navigate the company and understand what's happening is becoming a lot more important.
Yeah, so you've touched on this a few times. You mentioned, Claude Code or something like that can quite easily just like automate a lot of your technical skills, and you mentioned about like how soft skills are becoming much more important, and actually even more so, in the enterprise, at large enterprise scale. What's your advice to folks at the moment that probably a little bit or very much so intimidated by where things are heading with AI? How can we best prepare to ensure that like we've got the necessary skills to to stay relevant with AI that seems to be all powerful?
First of all, take a deep breath, relax. We've been there, we've done that. I mean, people respond. It's a big change. It's probably the biggest revolution of our lifetime, right? What we're seeing is unprecedented in terms of its impact. It's probably bigger than the Industrial Revolution. A lot of things are going to change. At the same time, I mean, if you look at human history, there have been big changes like that. So I always like to think about when spreadsheets were invented, right? So before spreadsheets, I'm sure that in banks and accounting firms and insurance firms and all that, there were people who were just very quick with numbers. They were very good with algebra and calculating numbers in their mind.
Mental arithmetic, yeah.
Exactly, and running like doing a running total, for example, running sum was a thing, right? And maybe you had a balance sheet and you need to send it to someone so they can quickly summarize the numbers for you and send it back to you, and all of that. And if you have a spreadsheet, you don't need to do any of that, right? Does that mean we don't have accountants anymore? We don't have bankers? Of course we do, right? And spreadsheets is a tool they use day in, day out. I mean, I don't know any accountant or any banker who doesn't use spreadsheets. Right now it's the norm. And their job is just different, right? So instead of just being in the nitty gritty of each and every number, they look at the bigger picture, right? They build financial models, they do forecasting, they do things that probably were not possible before. And I think that if you look at if you think about photography, right? In the past, if you wanted a family photo, right, then you needed to get a painter and you needed to sit the whole family for 5-6 hours, and somebody would be painting it, and it was very laborious. And then when cameras were invented, everybody was like, oh shit, we're not going to need any painters anymore, right? We still have painters. I think that they do well, but in your pocket you have a very powerful camera, and how many photos do you take every day, right? So I think that what people don't realize is that yes, things are going to change. Our role is going to change. Our toolkit is going to change. Maybe learning a programming language and remembering all the libraries and the syntax and everything is not going to matter that much. Your job is going to be directing it rather than writing the specific code. But I think that the pie just gets bigger, right? Because if in the past building applications, building data sets, building pipelines, building dashboards was something that a very small number of people could do, and it was very restricted. Now more people can do it, and it's just creating more opportunities, and the pie gets bigger. So that's what I think is going to happen.
Yeah.
And it's not. And by the way, it's not to say that the transition is not going to be difficult, right?
Yeah.
There's going to be a period between, the current state and the future state, and that interim period is going to be very difficult because a lot of people are going to lose their jobs. A lot of people are going to adjust. They will have to adjust because, whatever they've done and learned their entire career is just going to be irrelevant, right? So.
Yeah, things are changing. Soft skills, super important. And just brace yourself, I guess. Yeah, cool.
And maybe the last thing I'll say on that is that I think that maybe now in the current world, doing work is the skill, right? And you need to be able to do work, like you need to be able to write code or to build an application or things like that. I think in the future this is going to get commoditized, but doing the right work is going to become the critical skill, right? Because I think today, whatever question you have, you go in Claude or ChatGPT or whatever, ask a question, you get an answer, right?
Yeah.
But if you ask the wrong question, you get the wrong answer, right? So I think that never before in the history of mankind was it so easy to ask the wrong question and get the wrong answers at such an astonishing scale. And I think that the people who would know how to ask the right questions, how to do the right analytics, that will have the right frameworks and mental models, that would know what are the right applications to build, are going to be the people that are very sought after.
Interesting, fascinating discussion, Shah. Really appreciate your time, and
Thank you
have
so
an
much.
awesome rest of your conference.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.